God, why was I going to agree for that?
Not looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping it's that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Now I'm stuck.
Well, glad you're here. Happy belated veteran.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I'm already trying to be a Rotarian. Well, I don't know
Oh, she does that to people. She'll convert you.
Good recruiters are always recruiting.
Yeah.
Well, I go to about 3 a week, so.
Yeah.
She drinks all the Kool-Aid. Laura, if there was someone who drank all the Kool-Aid, it was Laura.
It's true. It's true.
My last one was when I was a conversation.
Oh, yeah. Well, my friend Comfort was supposed to come today. I just was texting her. Like, I feel bad showing up and not being a member. And I'm like, well, they'll still ask you, but you can always do my guest.
Exactly. Yep.
She's like, I just don't have the time to dedicate. Like, it's not about, I'm just asking you to come to lunch.
There's a couple that go to Tulsa every meeting.
Really? Thank you so much.
And no one cares.
Yeah.
It's fine. That's another one where you pay for it. They all have the same food, but you pay for it. So it's not like it's costly. Is this whole conversation on TV? It's always good to tell me that.
I'd like to welcome you to the noon meeting of the Tulsa Will Rogers Rotary Club, the friendliest club in District 6110.
Woo-woo!
If you will stand as you're able, and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. We have, other than our speaker today, no visitors or visiting Rotarians. This young man over here next to Patty is David Doherty, which we will be bringing into the club in next month. So we're looking forward to that. Yay! So we're going to change that number down there from 27 to 28. Yay! All right.
David is also a neighbor of mine.
What? Oh, really? Wow.
We're sitting here.
You.
He came anyway. He didn't walk out, so that's a good sign.
That is a good sign. So our inspiration, moment of inspiration today is the best, according to Dr. Google, the best inspirational quote from Rotary. And it's like this: the only true gift is a portion of yourself. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. I thought that was great. And Rotary is definitely changing the world in lots of different ways. Birthdays. We had Bob Bryant was on the 5th, Scott Baker on the 9th, Laura had hers this last weekend on the 12th, Karsten is the 15th, and Kim the 27th. So happy birthday. On the tables, you'll find copies of the September and October finances for the club. Take a look at those and for a second and let me know if you have any questions. Or let Kim know if you have any questions. Kim is our treasurer, and she does a great job of sending me the bank statements right after the first of the month, and keeps track of all this little bits and dabs of money that I collect from. So I appreciate you, Kim. All right. I had a question this week from one of our members about, is MSNI doing anything for Israel and Palestine? The only thing I learned this morning is that they have two warehouses full of stuff ready to go, but not being able to find anyone who will take it and receive it, I mean. So they're still talking about maybe doing another shipment to Ukraine, but as of right now, there's nothing going to Gaza or Palestine or Israel. So
might have
that's,
a contact for you.
you might have a contact? Okay, great. Let's see, what else? Well, you know what's coming up. Holiday in the Wood. I know some of you have bought your tickets, and it's much easier now than it was last week at this time to go online to the Will Rogers website and get your tickets. And I know some of you have done that, but we need all hands on deck. We've got 5 restaurants from Route 66 that are donating some food, some breweries that are donating some beer, and Jenny and Southwood are donating wine. So, but we're gonna have to have people greet and serve this stuff. So, and yes, you have to buy a ticket even to do that. So, anyway, go online, get your tickets, and you will have a job to do, I promise. Let's see here. Okay, you will notice too on our goal sheet that we have met our foundation goal. And that is thanks to 2 people for sure. I know a lot of you have helped with that. But I did the Paul Harris Fellow spiel not too long ago with Tom Upshaw. And now Tom, who's not here today, is a Paul Harris Fellow ×2. But then we also have someone in the club who is a Paul Harris Fellow ×3. And so they get this lovely pin with 3 of what I'm sure are sapphires on it. And that's Larry Harral. So Larry, if you'll come on up, we'll give him. It's very much appreciated, Larry. And don't lose. Good cause is right. So, Lauren, can you get a picture?
Of course I can.
Thank you. All right. So here is your. Oh, those are sapphires.
One more time at me. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Tom's not here today. Thank you so much. Tell me what inspires you to be a Paul Harris Fellow ×3.
I'll just keep reading about all the goals that they have and all the things particularly they're doing overseas right now. I just know that they all help them get. Kind of interesting, a friend of mine in law school when I went to OU, I got to know him. He turned out to be the chief financial officer for Rotary International. Wow. And he was in charge of the trust and handles everything from the highest point up there. And it's just one of those small world stories, you know. I went to an international convention and ran into him on the street in addition to the new international president coming in, inducted that year over at Dublin, Ireland. So we kept running into each other. He's from Barbados.
Oh my, that's great. All right. You know that the foundation has a very high rating as far as nonprofits go, and so most of your money that goes into the foundation goes where it's meant to go. So congratulations, Larry. All right, our Rotarian of the month is Bill Keeter, and so he's going to share with us a few things about himself. Little known facts about Bill Keeter. And then week after next, he's going to give us a more detailed history of this club, which I think will be very interesting. And I'm going to dig stuff out of my basement and we'll have show and tell. But right now, let's hear about Phil.
I'll try not to take too much of your time.
Well, most of you know how long I've been in this club, so you know a lot about me anyway. But I'm a Tulsa product. I was born and raised in Tulsa. I attended Lee and Barnard elementary schools. Barnard's no longer there. Horseman Junior High School is no longer there. And Tulsa Central High School, which is no longer in the same place as what it was. So after I left those schools, they closed all of them. I went to the University of Tulsa, graduated with a BA in economics. And I've on a number of times at the university spoken to them about how worthless that degree was. I ran a business for 35 years and never could use any of the theory of the business. But I went to TU, graduated in 59. 59 was a big year for me. Met my wife, Marilyn, there. We were married 61 years before she 2019 to Alzheimer's. Also that year, I opened up a boat dealership with my future father-in-law at the time. And I ran that dealership until 1986. And it was on Route 66. We closed the dealership in '86 because the city and the state, in their wisdom, put in I-44, took all the traffic off of 11th Street, which was Route 66, and so the business was, I didn't have any traffic, but it was an interesting thing. Also in 1960, I and 6 other dealers in this part of the country formed Magic Empire Recreation Incorporated, and that's the entity that operates the Tulsa Boat Sport and Travel Show. We're in our 64th year. All my original dealers that were in it with me are all gone. I'm the only remaining one. I've been president for 40 years of that particular show, and we continue. This will be our 64th show in January of this year. In 1986, I took over the presidency of the Marine Retailers Association of America, headquartered in Chicago. It was formed in '72 by myself and 11 other dealers from all around the country to represent all the boat dealers in the United States. We represented 6,000 dealers at that particular time. The association is still going strong. I retired in 2012. The association now represents almost 16,000. We had no representation, legislative or regulatory, or with the manufacturing end of our industry, so that's why we formed that association. So I'm proud that has sustained and gone on like it was. I'm a lifelong member, that would be 86, almost 87 years of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church. I've served on the board there, been board chairman, done all things at the church. Sit in the same seat at church that my grandmother and my mother sat in. Not by choice, because my mother made me do that. but I'm there almost every Sunday. And interestingly enough, my daughter, one of my daughters, she sits in that seat in the other service, in the early service. So I came into Rotary in 1961. My sponsor was Walt Kelly. They had Hope Lumber Company at that point in time. And I've served the club in a number of positions, program chairman, editor of the newspaper. We used to have a newspaper then. During the history section, maybe a couple of weeks, I'll bring some of those newspapers. Vice president, secretary and treasurer. I was Dick Tudner's secretary and treasurer when Dick was president. I am a Paul Harris Fellow twice. I made my wife Marilyn a Paul Harris Fellow twice. I made my son Scott a Paul Harris Fellow when he was in the Richardson, Texas club, and I made my grandson Austin DeMarco Paul Harris Fellow when he was in the downtown club. So Rotary's been near and dear to me. So I've remained active at the University of Tulsa. I spent a lot of time in the University of Tulsa in the alumni area and also in the athletic area, in the recruitment area. And I was fortunate enough to be granted a distinguished alumni status in 2017 at the university. So that's a little bit of what I've done.
Were you in a fraternity?
No, I was not. I went one semester to OU and I pledged SAE, and when I ran out of money and had to come home at the end of that semester, SAE didn't have a chapter here, so I ran around with the Sigma Chi, much to my
All right, that's great. I love it. Austin DeMarco, by the way, is a really good landscape artist if you need one. Phil's grandson. Thank you, Phil. That was great. He didn't tell you, but we have a lectureship at Boston Avenue that we bring in scholars from across the country, and Phil chaired that committee, the Barton Clinton Gordy Committee, for many, many years, and worked with our minister to bring in some top names of theologians and others throughout the years. So I'll be anxious to hear the history of this club.
Some of it you won't.
So I'm happy today on this Tuesday after Veterans Day to introduce our speaker, and his name is Sean Lord, and he sent me a beautiful biography which I managed to not bring today. So he's going to have to tell us, but I do know that he was in the United States Marine Corps, and he has started it's a ministry, it's an organization, it's what else? An entity to help veterans who find themselves homeless. And so he works with veterans for housing, for jobs, for food and clothing probably, addiction services, rehabilitation services. He's going to tell you all about Heroes Hope. So Sean, but tell us about you first. Sorry about that.
Thanks for letting me come hang out for a little bit. It's always fun to meet some new people and share about what we get to do in Tulsa. So I've lived here for about 5 years. I consider myself a jack of many trades and a master of none. I'm a pastor over in Tulsa at Life Church in Tulsa Hills. I'm also about 3/4 of the way through a PhD in theology, so I always love talking anything Bible with anybody. My wife's a real estate agent. We have written a book together, and we co-founded this organization together. And I teach a little bit on the side too, so I try to stay busy. But we founded Heroes Hope because we just wanted to make an impact. It's one of the things I'm going to share with you guys today. And so for us, it's how we serve. It's what we do as a family to give back to the community around us. And we've done it together for the most part with some other veterans that we work with as well. But spent 8 years in the Marine Corps. I'm a disabled Marine vet myself, and so I've got all the experience of working with the VA and connecting with other veterans. And a lot of the reason that we became the entity we are today is because of all of our experiences with those and seeing some of the gaps that existed. And so Heroes Hope has been officially a 501c3 since January of this year. We've been doing what we do for about 3 years in Tulsa. My wife and I, when we moved here January 2019, every city we've gone to, because she was a Marine as well, we got married in the military, every new city we've gone to, we always wanted to find out where are the places to hang out, where are the best restaurants, what can we do on Friday nights that isn't just partying like we used to do in the Marine Corps. And Tulsa's great. I mean, there's all kinds of restaurants downtown. You can walk anywhere, you can scooter anywhere. But me being a pastor and a super extrovert, I just started talking to anybody and everybody that was hanging out on a street corner or looked like they may live in the area that they're sitting in. And I started to realize that somewhere in the realm of 1 in every 6 or 7 men or women I talked to was a veteran. And so as we started to recognize that being an issue, we started to pray through, hey God, help us get somewhere where we can help with the issues that we're seeing. And coming from the VA, I've experienced all of the benefits and opportunities that come there, but also the struggles that come with a government-funded entity and the numbers of people that they are serving. It can be a very, very long process. And so, long story short, we sat down with a group of other vets and we said, hey, we see a gap. There are, in Tulsa, the VA estimates about 272 homeless veterans just in the Tulsa area. Now that does include like as far north as Owasso and as far south as Bixby, but that is just Tulsa, and it's growing by about 10% a month is what they're anticipating. And so as we're talking through that, we also started to realize a lot of their homelessness is rooted in struggles with addiction and struggles with post-traumatic stress. The big question we had then was, well, we just got to get everybody connected to the VA, because the VA's got counselors, the VA's got addiction recovery programs. But every vet that I started talking to and planting that idea reminded me of the experience that I had at the VA. Not that it was a bad one at all, and if anybody's ever worked at the VA or has family there, like, I love the VA. But what I recognized is when I finally found a counselor that I started to trust, and I started to unpack some of the things that I was struggling with, I've been dealing with. The gentleman I was working with, no military history, he had a veteran father, had all of the training and the skills to be a great counselor, sat across the table from me and said, Sean, I totally understand. And in that moment, I just shut him out, because I realized there's no way he could actually understand some of the things I've seen, some of the things I've experienced, because he just hasn't been there. And so as we were talking to veterans, I realized a lot of them have similar experiences. Some of them had been to the VA before, many of them had sought help for their post-traumatic stress or their addiction before, but ran into similar barriers. And It's like we have this unwritten rule in the veteran world that the only people that can care about us are other veterans, even if they're doctors, whatever it might be. And so right in front of us, we realized that the actual problem is we need to have veterans caring for veterans, at least in the situations that we had been coming across. So Heroes Hope, all of us, from my wife and I down through the rest of the board, is a veteran. Most of us have battled with post-traumatic stress, addiction to some degree. A couple of us were homeless for a little while. But we have the unique opportunity of being able to stand alongside vets and say, hey, we've actually been there. Whether it be on the combat deployment side or it be on the addiction, the family crisis, the homeless side, somebody in our organization has been there. So our hope is restoration through life-on-life contact. And so we'll meet a veteran, try to hear their story, find which one of us or one of the veterans that serve in our organization is going to be a good mentor for this young lady or gentleman, and then we work with them. But the end goal is leading them back to self-care. We want to be able to provide housing, we want to be able to provide clothing, all those great benefits that were mentioned before, but no red tape. What I mean by no red tape, there's a lot of great homeless ministries in Tulsa. Many of them are very, very full, and there has to be some guidelines they set for people to get in there, because otherwise they just can't open the doors to everybody. But a lot of the funding also requires that certain legal backgrounds, certain felonies can't be accepted in certain places. Sex offenders is a big one. The other problem is post-traumatic stress often, well not often, but sometimes comes with violence attached to it, as somebody's struggling with dreams, memories, flashbacks, whatever you want to call them. And so there are certain limitations that the men and women we work with are going through that don't always apply to every other man or woman living on the street. And so we recognize that we can't send every veteran we work with to typical shelters or typical homeless ministries. And even if we could, they may not stay there because they don't feel connected, because not everybody there is a veteran. So we try to operate in that unique space and work to get back on their feet, housing, vehicle, job, whatever it might be based off of their circumstances, and help lead them back to being able to care for themselves. There's one gentleman we got to help recently. He doesn't want me to share his actual name, so I'm gonna call him Bob. But Bob, when I met him, was living on the streets of Tulsa, still technically married. He had family in town, but he had not seen his family for over a decade. When he got back from Vietnam, he started battling with post-traumatic stress only while sleeping. So during the daytime, no issues. He was the nicest guy. His family felt really connected. But when he would go to bed at night, oftentimes it was so bad, he woke up one night, he had broken his wife's nose because he punched her so hard in his sleep. The tipping event for him was when there was a night he woke up and he had just been pulled off of his daughter and he was choking her. Because in his flashback, he could not, I mean, he was technically sleepwalking, but could not separate that from reality. And so he ended up actually walking away from his family and staying in a hotel room because he felt like he was a danger to them. And a buddy of his had called him a few weeks later, and they were talking about it. His buddy said, well, hey, I recognize that if I have 3 or 4 drinks before I go to bed, I don't have dreams during the night, and I stay asleep all night long. So Bob was like, okay, I want to try it. So he started having 3 or 4 beers, and a few weeks in realized, like, yeah, this actually works for me. Like, this will help me sleep. I don't have these night issues. He recorded himself to make sure it was true. And so he went back home because he felt like he had tackled the issue. But anybody that has seen somebody struggle with alcohol before or knows how alcohol works, 3 or 4, it eventually led to 5 or 6. Then it led to mixed drinks and things that are more strong. And 2 or 3 years into that, he is a full-blown alcoholic that is drinking at every hour of the day because it was the only thing that he truly felt was keeping his family safe. That then led to financial crisis and spiraled until I met him on the street. And where some people had offered assistance before, everybody thought, well, I've got to address the addiction problem. If he could just stop drinking, then we could get him a job, we can get him a house, whatever it might be. The problem is Bob didn't want to stop drinking because for him, if he stopped, he was violent. And he truly felt more dangerous to be in public and out of isolation, sober, than he felt like he was drunk. And so anybody that had offered that assistance said, hey, I want to help you overcome this, that they didn't know what was going on that was driving to that. And they couldn't understand why he was so put off at the idea of stopping the addiction problem. But when we met him, we started to realize that, man, what's driving the addiction is something a lot deeper. And so as vets, we got to stand alongside Bob, we got to have some conversations, share some stories, figure out some struggles, and find a way to help him start to cope with some things he had seen and be open to sharing with us before we ever started addressing the alcohol issue. Once he felt comfortable enough addressing the mental health concern, then we started working on the alcohol issue. So Bob today actually lives in a retirement home with his wife here in Tulsa and sees his kids, all his kids are in their 20s and 30s now, 3 or 4 times a week. And he's actively involved in the retirement home. He hasn't had an issue with his post-traumatic stress in a couple of years. But it took a group of veterans that were able to identify what the underlying issue was to try to help lead him there. And he had a very similar experience to some of us of trying to seek counseling for that, but not being able to open up to them. And so that's where we get the opportunity to uniquely exist and care for a group of people that wouldn't be open to being cared for otherwise, just because of our experience and our background. It's been kind of cool because our end goal is housing. I mean, I know being in ministry, you might know that somebody needs a job or needs transportation, needs this, but if they're hungry and they're cold, they're getting rained on all the time, it's windy, they're not going to care about those long-term things because you got to meet the right now need. And so the immediate need is usually transportation, clothing, and housing. And we had an architect back in January, I think it was, right around the time we finalized all the 501c3 stuff, sat down and just kind of told him what we wanted to do. And the hard part with us is apartments can be a challenge because if you're battling post-traumatic stress, that brings some trust issues, and you hear noises next door to you, that could trigger all kinds of things for you and the people around you. So he threw out the idea and said, hey, what if we designed you a standalone tiny home that you could somewhat soundproof to be able to protect from outside of that while you're walking through, but it was standalone, so you didn't have neighbors. You could lock and people could feel safe. And so we said, hey, we'll give it a shot. So we had an organization donate plans for a 450 square foot, ADA accessible, single story tiny home. And we're working with the airport right now. They've got 40 acres of land to build 30 tiny homes here in Tulsa, specifically for the veteran community. Now there are other organizations in Tulsa doing similar things. Eden Village, there's an organization out in Owasso, Tulsa area that just got $500,000 to build a 4-story like mini condo complex to take in and care for general homelessness. We are focusing primarily on those that we know we can care for best, the veteran community, and trying to reconnect them. Some of them will go from our program to one of those other programs once we've helped them walk through what they're going through, but that's what we exist for. A lot of what we do and why we do it is the information sitting in front of you guys. And I always tell people, I've spoken at almost every other Rotary group and some other organizations that are passionate about homeless outreach. There's a few ways that you can help. The first is awareness. I think most people would drive by anybody panhandling and wish they could do something more. But it's also difficult to give people things because you don't know what's going on with them. You don't know what's going on the back end. But I firmly believe if everybody just knew the right person to call, most people would probably make that phone call or shoot that text if they could. And so I put my business card there, and that letterhead has all of my contact info and the address for our organization. I want people to know that you can call us, text us any time of day. And our board, I usually shoot out those when somebody says, hey, I saw somebody holding a homeless veteran sign at this street corner. One of us will go down there and try to meet this individual. The cool thing about Oklahoma is the homeless community can get access to a cell phone if they've got a photo ID, and sometimes I can go get whoever the individual's number is and stay in contact, start to work with them there. Sometimes I just have to find out where they're normally at so I can go back and see them at another time. But I want as much awareness out there that we exist so that you guys, your families, your friends, your churches know you can call us when you run into somebody. And I know one of the questions I get is how you verify they're a veteran. Don't worry about that. I'll worry about that. But if they say I am a veteran and I'm homeless or at risk of being homeless, boom, give me a call, shoot me a text, email, whatever you got to do. Second is sharing about this with others, because like I said, if I can expand my influence, if each of you shared it with 2 more people, right? I just took talking to 15 people and shared it with an additional 30 people. And now I just expanded to 45 people knowing what we do, how we do it, and knowing who they can reach out to. And then the third thing is we are fundraising for these tiny homes. Each one, we didn't have to pay for the blueprints, plans, or anything like that, but every single one with furnishings and full HVAC, range, all that is about $48,000. The goal is to break ground with 5. The airport has already said that they will give us 10 acres to start with. The cool part about the way we design these homes is they're technically portable. They're built on a concrete foundation. If I showed you a picture right now, they look like the typical new build house with like the white painting and black trim. but the concrete foundation they're on has 2 steel beams in between, so you can pick it up and put it on a flatbed truck. Because if the airport expanded in 5 years or so and said, hey, the runway's got to go out another mile, and we got to build a whole other terminal, we could pick these homes up and move them and not have to just level them and kick all these veterans back out. And that actually saved us about $10,000 in cost. So we're able to build one, like I said, fully furnished and everything for about $48,000. The goal right now is 5, and we're getting there. We got the builder. As soon as we have enough to cover shipment of supplies and things, he's going to order them. We'll build them out in the Glenpool area, and then we'll just transport them over. So I've been sharing with businesses, individuals, families, churches. You know, if there's ever an opportunity where you're looking to give to something homeless ministry and don't know where, I want to make sure you know where you can do that for us. We have a QR code for our website on that page as well. And we're building there's some testimonies, there's some pictures of people that we've gotten to serve. But I want to make sure that everybody knows the 3 ways that they can be supporting us. So that's just about everything that I can share outside of, I could tell you stories of some of the vets that we've served, but I'd be here for hours. Because I love it, I love telling stories. And I know stories will motivate people, but I also know we're out to get back to work and life and things. So, but I'd love to answer any questions you got. Sir?
What is the cost to the veteran?
Absolutely nothing.
He lives there rent-free?
Yes, sir. So the way the program works, if you were the veteran, whatever your need might be, you have a space immediately if there's an open house that I can say, hey, I can take you there right now. Now, on the back end, what we do is one of the guys on our board is a financial planner. We work with them and say, hey, the big 4 or 5 goals are in sustainability is transportation, means of income, sustainable food. So we sit down with that veteran the first couple of weeks that they're with us, and we say, what does this look like for you? What goals do you have? Here are 4 or 5 things that we know you need. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? But we also want you to be owning your own development. And then we'll set those goals with them, and we work with our financial counselor will work with them too. We start to figure out what do we need to do to get you back to work? Is there a physical condition, something like that? Because the goal is, if they're with us for a year, in that first 6 months, we are addressing the needs that led to where they're at, so that we can get them employed and starting to save so that they can go on and use a VA loan to purchase their own house, start a business, whatever it might be. Now, once they have gainful employment, transportation, they are basically self-sufficient. The way the program works is we want to teach them to be financially reliant too. And so the financial structure actually has them start to pay a percentage of the living costs for where they're at the last 6 months to a year they're with us, so that when they launch out, they've actually already know what it's like to pay bills, to pay for your rent again, and things like that. And all the money they do pay on the back end, it doesn't go to the organization, it goes back into caring for the veterans that are newer in the cycle. And so that way we know at the end of it, we can say to them, hey, look, you're already paying $1,200 a month towards rent and $100 a month towards utilities and these things. So we know if you leave today, you can still do that at this apartment complex or this place or this place. So initially no cost to them. It doesn't actually cost them at all, but that's just the structure of helping them rebuild some of those financial needs and things.
No families involved, just singles?
One of the models, we do have like a 2-bedroom family. A majority of the veterans we're working with, though, are living on the streets on their own, especially because most of them are battling post-traumatic stress or depression, so isolation was their choice. We do have the ability to build a home for families later. We just don't have families as a whole that we're working with right now.
What about retirees? Are any of the homeless people actual retirees that would be getting a pension?
Yeah, so actually there's a really unique individual I worked with about 6 months ago that living on the streets and has full benefits.
Yeah.
But this individual, when they set up their benefits, everything was paper check, and the relationship they're in dissolved. And he got kicked out and didn't have access to mail, had a restraining order, so couldn't go back to the house or anything like that, and never had the conversation about checks. And so when we were able to get stuff moved over to direct deposit and set up a bank account, he started getting his military pension back. So his homelessness was alleviated because he just needed access to the resource again.
Right.
So it can be as simple as that sometimes, and we have had that. Yeah.
Cool. That makes so much sense to me, veterans helping veterans, because it is a...
It's not a new phenomenon. 40 years ago, after my first stitch in the Navy, when I was doing my respiratory therapy rotation across the street, we had a revolving door patient over there who was a retired Navy chief that had a post office box downtown here and
Yep.
get his check every month, and you know, he would get the bottle and just never could get off it.
Yep.
And I mean, he would come in all messed up, and they would clean him up and send him out, and you know, the cycle started again.
Yep.
How do you feel about the challenges facing like city council and stuff with getting approval for tiny home communities? Are y'all working with them, or with you're doing something at the airport?
Yeah, we've got a couple of attorneys that are former Marines that are kind of helping some of that too, and helping us process through. There was a couple of neighborhoods we were looking to try to get land in, and knew we were going to have HOA problems and things like that.
NIMBYism, not in my backyard.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we look towards the airport, because you're not building big housing developments over there because of the noise factor.
Sean, these houses you're talking about, these 5, what's their square footage approximately?
About 450.
Not too bad.
Yeah, single bedroom, wide enough front doors for wheelchair, single stories. We don't have to worry about any of the ADA issues.
When I was stationed in Balboa, I lived in Pacific Beach. I had a 450 square foot efficiency.
Yeah.
500 a month in 1991.
Yeah, I mean, 450 square feet is expensive now.
Do the airplanes not bother? The airplane noise?
Airplane noise does bother, but the homes are also somewhat soundproof with the insulation, and so it cuts the decibels back about 25, which is a good deal of it.
So if we, like the little guy in my neighborhood that's there every day, is it appropriate to say, are you a veteran?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
And that's why I tell people, like, you don't need to worry about trying to verify that yourself. We will do that. Because there are some people that live on the street long enough to know that if you tell somebody you're a veteran, people are probably more likely to help you. And I've had a couple of those, and when I verified they weren't veterans, I just had a difficult conversation with them and say, like, hey, this is why you're not going to get help from the places that other veterans would. The other part is we don't try to meet every need for them, because there are other organizations that do better at some needs. Like, I will take men and women to the Be Heard movement for a shower so they go do a job interview. Because getting a job is not that difficult, but interviewing for a job you live on the street for 6 months and you smell like you have is extremely difficult. But there are also other organizations that offer services that they're more well equipped to do it. So we will also, sometimes we'll take vets to other organizations to try to help meet needs faster so that we can get them off the street and back as soon as possible.
Is the land at the airport north of the airport?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yep.
Are you aware, excuse me, are you aware of the program for veterans at TU?
Yes. I actually sat down with the liaison that works at the VA, the VA liaison there. He's part of the Military Officers of America Association, MOAA. So he and I talk pretty often, especially when there's veterans I'm working with that don't have a trade or any skill outside of the military, so that we can try to help in that direction.
Their president, Brad Carson, is an Iraqi war veteran.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
he's very,
Very veteran focused, yeah.
All right. Any other questions? That was
One comes
great.
up with, feel free to text or call me.
That was great. That makes so much sense to me.
I appreciate it.
All right, we do have a little job for you before you take off, before we get.
One other announcement, or a couple other announcements that I thought of. Saturday, December 9th, the Sand Springs Club is needing some helpers with ringing the bell in Sand Springs, so in the afternoon. So I'll have a sign-up sheet if any of you want to do that. We'll get some service hours for that. So Stan got some service hours last Friday working at Will Rogers High School, so we appreciate that. Also, you'll notice on the back, there's candy, and you were gonna have candy for a while because you guys were so generous with trunk or treat, and we did end up having probably around 75 to 100 come to trunk or treat, but we had enough candy for 7,500, I think. So, so you'll be seeing candy, and also our more flyers for Holiday in the Wood. If you have a place to display those, that would be great. Okay, you ready to draw? Anybody else have any brags or? All right, John. This is.
You have to
Oh, you mean,
for it.
pick a ticket.
Go for your own.
If he picks his own, it's okie dokie.
4806.
4806.
It's always, is that you?
Somebody after me.
Oh, no.
It was after me. I got 04.
48.
Right.
It was after me, anyway.
Gee, did you get that same ticket?
Always win.
Peter always wins. Man. Peter, I want to go to the casino with you.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's go buy some lottery tickets too.
He's probably not allowed in anymore.
All right, any brags, any other announcements? Why, thank you. All right, well, let's dismiss with the four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it
Build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be fun? Reminder, no meeting next week. I hope you all have a blessed Thanksgiving holiday, and we'll see you back here on the 28th.
Super.
Safe travels, Laura.
Thank you.
Lawrence.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sean, thank you so much.